Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast, episode number 39. My name is Phil and joining me as always is Rohan. How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. And joining us today is, from the USA, is Sean. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Whereabouts in the States are you from, Sean?
South Carolina.
Ah, very nice. So on the East Coast.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, before we get too carried away with you, Sean, we first have to go through the latest changes that are happening with Home Assistant. And I think the big change since our last episode is that Home Assistant now has a Wednesday release cycle. So this now means that Home Assistant, both the beta and the live version of Home Assistant, or the proper release, will now be released on a Wednesday as opposed to the weekend. This should give everyone, especially the Home Assistant core team, a bit of time to relax on the weekends as opposed to racing around putting fires out as they are released.
Yeah, so hopefully that works out a little better, and hopefully that works out better for the stability of the system too. So
exactly.
On some other cool news, so the podcast, this Home Assistant podcast, is now available on Spotify. So if that's how you consume your podcast, then fantastic. That's where we are. We'll leave a link in the show notes and join us there as well.
Carrying on from our previous State of the Union special episode, Paulus gave a talk in Amsterdam. There was, of course, the video on the Home Assistant blog. But I think another important announcement that came out of this is something that Paulus said, and we'll play that now.
And so today, I'm announcing we have our first hire of Nabukasa. And that's Pascal Visely. He is the founder of Has.io. He is a core developer of Home Assistant. And soon he's going to start working full-time on Home Assistant. And now that means that we're doubling our capacity of full-time employees. So that's going to be great because it at least gives me some rest. Because even though, I'm like the one full-time employee, and so every chore lands on my plate, right? Because it's kind of shitty to have like all these people in their free time and be like, oh yeah, do all these chores. I mean, still people do chores, but like a lot of the release management I do now. I do it. And now at least I'll be able to share this burden.
So I think this is really big news. Home Assistant now has 2 full-time developers or 2 full-time staff working for Nabukasa for Home Assistant. So this is going to, double the amount of people working full-time on Home Assistant. But it's really, I think we'll see a lot of growth in Home Assistant and particularly in Has.io as well. Pascal's done a lot of great work with Has.io. So this is really exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. And look forward to seeing what else they put out. So far it's been great, and let's see what happens from here.
Yeah.
So also in 0.84, Lovelace is going to be the official UI. So this is some pretty big news there. As soon as you update by default, you will be using Lovelace. So in the next episode, we'll have more details, of course, just as more details about that emerge.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think it hasn't been that long since Lovelace was first announced. So, yeah, it's finishing off the year with the switching over the UI to Lovelace. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's it's not a bad thing. So
yeah,
here we go.
Exciting. All right, but before we get too carried away, we have to talk about 0.83, and there's a lot in this release, so just brace yourself. First, new features that are being released in 0.83, and the most important one, I think, for Google Assistant users is going to be lock support. So you can now have your Google Assistant lock your doors and also optionally unlock them. If you want to enable unlocking, you need to switch it on in the configuration YAML file or in the configuration UI. So yeah, that's really cool. Google Assistant users, you can now have, I guess you can add it to a routine or whatever the applicable terminology is in Google Assistant. So when you go to sleep, you can say, hey, Google, it's bedtime, and have Google Assistant lock everything up for you.
Yeah, you just got to be careful of enabling the unlock as well, right? So just there is a risk in that.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't want somebody yelling, hey, open the door, and, your door unlocks, right? So you want to see if you can avoid that.
At all costs.
Exactly. So just do be careful, though there is some convenience behind it. There may be a security implication there as well. Also, now your Google Home devices can be used as Bluetooth device trackers. So that's kind of cool. I guess you can use your Google Homes to detect other devices like your phone to see if they're home or not. So as long as you have your phones on, phones and their Bluetooth on rather, it doesn't need to be paired, and it should just detect it and hopefully you can pull it from the API. So this is using the unofficial API, like I said, but that's still pretty neat. If you have a Google Home already in every room, you may not need to have other device trackers in your house. So that's handy.
That's really cool because basically all those Google Home devices become little Bluetooth beacons that you can just use to trace where your phone is. So I know one of the problems with using Bluetooth is it's short range. If you've got a large house, maybe you have a multi-story house, your Bluetooth may not reach the whole length of the house. So if you've got multiple devices, and as long as you're connected to one of those or being able to be seen from one of those devices, you'll be marked as home. So that's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people have multiple as well, right? So to do, specific things to say, hey, I'm in, and it'd be interesting to see how it detects or how accurate the detections are. So, if I have one in every room now, can I say room detect, or can I use this for room detection
exactly.
rather than for just a home or not? So, we'd love to hear your feedback on that if anybody's tried it out. So yeah, let us know.
All right, and also some more Google Home love, and also some Amazon Echo love is now onboarding cards for Google Home and the Amazon Echo. So now you can see which devices are exposed to the Amazon Echo and Google Home, and will also allow you to toggle them on or off. So you can disable the Amazon Echo integration if you need to from the UI. No YAML needed, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's handy. So if you're using the Fibro Home Center hubs, we've got another Z-Wave hub added to the this release. So if you're using the Fibro, there you go.
That's actually a pretty popular one as well. So good to see support for that.
Yeah, for some reason I thought this was in here already. So that's it's interesting that it wasn't.
And if you are a fan of Lovelace, and I'm sure a lot of you are, there's now a new shopping list Lovelace card which has been added. I'm excited to try this out actually. I use the Amazon Echo for managing my shopping list, so hopefully one day there'll be an integration where if I tell my Amazon Echo to add something to the shopping list, and hopefully the Lovelace card can then have it added in the UI as well. That would be cool. I don't think it's possible yet, but yeah, there's potential for that in the future, I think.
Yeah, that's cool. Also, if you use Tautili, which is a Plex Media Server extension, you can start seeing the stats from your Plex Media Server into Home Assistant. So things like, what's the top movie or TV show? How often do you transcode? So on and so forth. So that's now in
cool.
Home Assistant.
And TP-Link LTE routers are now supported. Currently only supports the ability to send an SMS from the router, which I thought was, all right, cool. This is another, device tracker platform, but no, not yet. But the ability for a router to send you an SMS, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I had my ISP decided to do some maintenance, which I wasn't told about, and it wasn't until my Uptime Robot reported that Home Assistant was actually offline that I knew my whole network was down and it wasn't my problem. So the ability for a router to send an SMS, that's pretty handy.
Yeah, that is actually very handy. I wonder if you can customize those SMSs too. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Also, the track car device tracker support. So essentially, this comes in as a new GPS device tracker. You can now start tracking more devices. It's got over 1,500 devices, it says. So that's interesting.
Yeah, there's a Hasio add-on as well. Frank released a Hasio add-on for that tracker component as well. I did a bit of research into this because I thought 1,500 GPS devices, like this has to be pretty interesting. And there's a lot out there. There's talk of also, I think it's OBE port on your car that you can just plug into.
Yeah.
And get apparently there's a couple out there that can just plug into your car and then they can report the GPS and your car status via this tracker protocol.
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah, the limited research I did wasn't filling me with confidence that any of them actually work or will be work in Australia
Yeah.
at least. So, and a lot of these 1,500 devices, a lot of them seem to be coming out of China. So, yeah, but if someone's using this component, I would love to hear about it. Feedback at haspodcast.io, and just be very interested to see what the use cases are for this as well.
Yeah, and I'm looking at actually looking at their website right now, and it's when I'm looking at just supported devices, just a bunch of like KG300 and like just a bunch of essentially model
Just part
numbers there.
numbers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's hard to tell what that actually is. So yeah, so if folks are using it, that's interesting.
The Norwegian public transportation sensor has been added. This was, I'm guessing it's a similar one. Recently we had the Sydney, New South Wales transportation sensor. So another public transportation sensor has been added to Home Assistant. Well, I always appreciate those. So thank you for that contribution.
There you go. Also, Lupusec, hopefully I'm saying that right, which is a alarm control panel, is now supported.
Another alarm control panel. Excellent.
That's right.
And upload and download sensors for the ASUS WRT, which was from our previous episode 37. Magnus mentioned that he might add this in. So he's added it in for this release. So if you want to know how much you're uploading and downloading and you're using the ASUS WRT component, there it is. It's available now.
Yeah. Also, 17track.net, which seems to be a package tracking website. So you can now start tracking packages, and based on that, you can say, you can use different automations and such to say, okay, my package is here, blink the whatever green or blink a light green or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So 17track.net is now supported.
And for those that recently got a bit excited about the recent NASA Mars landing of the latest robot on Mars, there's a launch sensor to keep track of whenever there's a space launch around the planet. So this should complement the ISS sensor pretty well. Maybe you can track when the next ISS food delivery is going to be and automate something around that.
That's cool. Also, the W800 RF32 sensors. Sorry, that's a little bit of a mouthful. So the W800 family of RF receivers are essentially, they work with X10. So if you have any X10 devices and want to bring that support in and you have W800 family, now you're in luck.
That's great to see some old, I guess, legacy home automation protocols still being added into Home Assistant.
Yeah, that's some of the original stuff. That's great.
Yeah, and another health-related component submitted by Aaron Batcher, who you may remember from our Spotlight episode on developing for Home Assistant. This one is the flu near you sensor, which is I believe it's only available in the States though, but I think it uses data from the CDC, from the American government, which is like the Center for Disease Control, and you can basically track how likely you are to get the flu or where the latest outbreak of the flu is. So yeah, if you want to have an excuse to stay home and work on Home Assistant, just add that to your Home Assistant config. There you go.
That's right. Also, from a platform perspective, there's now the light switch platform added, which is great and is very timely for Christmas tree season. So
yes,
there you go. This will help with voice assistant and such as well. So
yeah, because I think a lot of Z-Wave switches, they're appliance switches, right? So they turn things on and off, but they're not treated as a light in a Home Assistant, so you can't add them to like a light group in Home Assistant. But this will basically allow you to just port it over into a light in Home Assistant and let it be added as a group. So yeah, a very timely addition for Christmas season.
That's right.
All right, and some breaking changes. There's actually a few breaking changes in the release, but we've just cherry-picked a couple here that we thought should be highlighted. The logbook has had some speed improvements done. They're trying to make it a little bit faster, which we always appreciate it. But as part of the updates, there are a few changes to the way the include and exclude domains works. In your configuration where you had both exclude and include domains specified, the excluded domains are ignored now.
Right.
They weren't previously ignored, but they will be ignored now. So that's just to make sure things a little bit more consistent with other platforms as well. But if you are using include and exclude in the logbook component, just there is a breaking change you'll need to be wary of. I don't think it will affect too many people, but yeah, just something that to highlight there.
Interesting. Okay. Also, if you use the Xiaomi Aquaros platform, So all the events are now prefixed with Xiaomi Aquara. So, Xiaomi underscore Aquara. And so you'll need to go ahead and update all your automations and such. So things like button clicks and so on and so forth will be affected from an automation perspective.
Yeah, I'm guessing there must have been some conflicts with other components out there, so they've had to make sure everything doesn't step on each other's toes.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is what it is. So.
And some other noteworthy updates. There is now Australian support for Waze, so I have a special thank you for Troy Kelly for adding that. Thank you very much. I cannot wait to move away from Google Maps for time tracking my commute and getting better accuracy information from Waze. So thank you very much, Troy.
That's wicked.
All right, Sean, it's that time of the episode where we're going to turn our attention to you now. And I think we'll start off with our standard first question, which is, how long have you been using Home Assistant for?
Now it might be around a year and a half, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a year and a half, close to 2 years now. We're getting there.
Yeah, that's a decent amount of time.
Yeah, it's been, I'm looking back, I'm surprised just how much time I've been spending on it. I feel like I still don't know very much.
Yeah, that's kind of always the case, though.
Is Home Assistant your first foray into home automation? Or have you used anything else?
Yeah, as far as, I guess, like a central hub, I first got into it. My first purchase was a Nest, and I was just more curious about controlling it from afar. Like if I left it, I was living with a roommate at the time, and we had different schedules. So something that was just set it and forget it, and it would just learn when we were gone, and it was just very convenient for us.
Right.
And then I wanted to branch out, and then I don't know if they still have this program, but it's like a Works with Nest
Yeah.
thing, and I think I saw the Hue light bulbs on there. Then I bought a starter set, and then just gradually got one or two items for that, and then all of a sudden I have 6 different apps on my phone that only controls one thing in my house. And I just thought there has to be something better out there to manage all this. And I think I saw on Reddit somewhere someone was talking about Home Assistant, and I checked it out, and then whole lot of confusion later, I got my system up and running, and everything talks together, and it's wonderful.
And so what are you using to run Home Assistant? Are you still using a Raspberry Pi?
I used to run it on I have the original Raspberry Pi 1B that I had kicking around. I think I used it for like an XBMC player way back when it first came out. And so I just chucked it on there because I was looking for a use for it anyways, and it was great for a while. It's just eventually it got really slow. The first gen especially, and restarts were taking several minutes, and you have to restart Home Assistant a lot sometimes. And eventually I ported it over to my computer. I got a virtual machine with Lubuntu on it, and I've just been running it off that ever since.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, it's funny because you're saying that I'm actually staring at my Pi 1B, which I started same exact same deal. I started it on that too, and yeah,
it's great. I mean, I just turned the Pi into a Pi hole now, so I mean, it's still useful.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you using Has.io at all, or just standard Home Assistant?
Just the standard Home Assistant stuff. The Linux installation method that they have detailed on the Home Assistant site.
Okay.
So you've obviously started out with the Raspberry and a couple of Nest products. Since you started using Home Assistant, has that sort of started a new shopping list for you where you've had to branch out and start buying more stuff to fulfill your home automation needs?
But yeah, I mean, I've stuck with Hue for the longest time. I'm still sticking with Hue, and I haven't branched out to try any other bulbs just because, I mean, I found something that works. I don't want to spend money on something that I've never tried before.
Yeah.
Aside from that kind of thing, I started getting their Hue motion sensors and just wanted to try that out. And it turns out that their motion sensors are awesome. And so all my lights now in the house are triggered by motion sensors. And then someone came out with an awesome resource where it's just a website detailing different components that work with Home Assistant.
Yeah.
I can't remember who did that.
Was it Awesome HA?
No, I might have it bookmarked somewhere. It's just someone where they just went through and made a website of all compatible Home Assistant devices. And they have everything on there. And I remember seeing a company, and a Chinese company, Xiaomi, and that's when I saw, like, wow, all this stuff for so little money. And it's like, surely they have a lot of cool stuff. And sure enough, they did. I ordered a bunch of stuff on there and took about a month to get here, but that's been worth it ever since too. Because their motion sensors, I mean, they're probably better than the Hue ones in some regards. But just other things like, door and window sensors has just been slowly branching out, and just now got to figure out a time to maybe branch out a little bit more and wait another month.
If there's anything in home automation, anything, as soon as you put smart home on a product package, the price goes up exponentially, and then it's really hard to justify that price to anyone else.
Yeah, especially with the Hue motion sensors. Now, I mean, they're great and all. I wouldn't buy them again just because I think they're $40. Whereas the Xiaomi ones, I think I can get them for 12 and some change. So it's just like now, if I could do it all over again, I just would have started with maybe the Hue bulbs still, but I just would have stuck with all Xiaomi, everything else probably.
Sure. Can't say we blame you for that one though, right? It's I'm kind of in that same boat where I have all of my stuff, and then now I'm like, I should have done that, but yeah, it's and it's great. I mean, it's super cheap. It takes a month, so that's a problem. I'm in the same boat. It takes about 6 weeks for me, right? So
yeah, but its price points, you can't beat it.
Are you running anything else?
Oh man, you're gonna make me open up my Home Assistant. Let's see. Yeah, we got a couple Xiaomi stuff now. Smart TV, a couple Chrome. I did get the Chromecast a while back, way before all this started.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, we recently got a Neato robot vac. That's probably my wife's favorite thing.
Oh yeah.
Couple smart plugs here and there. I mean, just kind of like your basic stuff starting out. I mean, I when I first started, I was primarily focusing on like what can the app itself handle, like the Hue app. What can it do on its own? What can Nest do on its own? Before I branched out into Home Assistant and realized like, oh wow, I can literally tie everything together and have it just work in one big automation, and didn't have to rely on any other outside sources.
Yeah. What's interesting is I think out of most people that we talk to, it's you've somehow found a way to keep the number of ecosystems in there kind of compact, right? Mostly between Hue and Xiaomi. That's interesting because it's a lot of people. It's like, oh yeah, I have 2 of these, 1 of that thing, and they all do the same thing, right? Like, and I'm not any different.
Yeah. I think I'm running 4 Zigbee networks.
Yeah, I've just been sticking like what can do the same job, but what is the cheapest?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? You start off with something and then you realize, maybe it would be better if I start slowly migrating to over here, and then you start migrating to like that ecosystem, and then something else comes out, and then you're in with 3 ecosystems, and then another one, and it all adds up pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, I see people Reddit posts all the time about how they're migrating now to Z-Wave or something along those lines. It's like, man, that's like, do you guys have like infinite money? It's just like all that stuff, just migrating constantly. That's so expensive.
Yeah, that's why. So it's funny because for me, I actually started out with Z-Wave switches, and then at some point I switched to Lutron, and so I have 4 switches in my house that are Z-Wave, and everything else is Lutron. And it's like, and part of me is like, okay, I got to migrate these, and then the rest of me is like, I don't want to spend a couple $100 on that. Like, it works, but.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, especially when I'm trying to, convince someone else, like, hey, we need this, and here's why, and they don't ever believe it. But it's just like, if it works, just keep it that way. It works fine.
So what are you using for presence detection in your house?
The Asus WRT component.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just have it look for our phones. Whenever our phones appear on the network, we're home. I didn't go any more in depth than that. I thought about using like GPS and other things, but I was also thinking about battery life for our phones. And it's just like, so far we've had 0 issues just using, the Wi-Fi network detection.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it's like, I have it like set up to where like, hey, if we go away, it remembers our devices, I think, for 5 minutes before it decides that we really are gone in case one of us drops off the network for whatever reason. But it's like, I don't think we've ever had a false positive or anything like that yet.
Yeah, the Wi-Fi presence detection is pretty solid, I think.
Yeah, it's been great. No complaints there. I mean, I've thought about, having some redundancies, but it's just never been needed.
Yeah. So like when you say redundancies, you mean like what happens if my phone dies kind of thing, or?
Right. It's things like that. I mean, I thought about maybe tying in our motion sensors into the whole mix, but it's like, until the phone's really something bad has to happen to our phones before even that something like that happens.
Sure.
So my phone, my Pixel, decided that it would die this week, and
no.
yeah, and so I can attest that you should always have some form of backup. Case in point, tonight when I came home by myself, because my phone obviously doesn't turn on anymore, the house doesn't know that I'm home, and sort of, it'll start sending me Facebook messages, which I can't receive because my phone doesn't turn on. But I do have, and I've mentioned on the podcast before, that the tablet on the wall, I can just go in and punch a code and disable the alarm panel in Home Assistant. And that also triggers the house to activate that someone's home. So that was a lifesaver for me tonight. So I do, if you do, I know you might think, something catastrophic will have to happen to my phone, but all it takes is for someone to drop their phone in the pool or get it crushed under their car in the door or something, and then you can't get your Home Assistant to recognize your home. It can be a very frustrating experience.
Oh, I can imagine. Now that you've shared your horror story, I'm going to have to start thinking of something maybe.
I do recommend the manual alarm component in Home Assistant. If you can hook it up with like an MQTT broker, you set it up as a PIN code, and then I have it set so if the alarm panel is disarmed, then someone is home, and that's it. Then the automations are based on that.
Okay. No, that sounds good.
That seemed to be the easiest and simple override I could imagine. Otherwise, I guess if you wanted to get really fancy, and this is what I thought about maybe using some Xiaomi door window sensors for, you could maybe put them on certain drawers in your kitchen, and then maybe have like a combination. So when you open the top drawer and the bottom drawer, and then the middle drawer all in the same sequence, it like tells Home Assistant that it's you. Maybe that would be a cool way to disarm an alarm.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, those are good ideas.
So basically a PIN code, but using your drawers or something.
Yeah, or doors or something.
Yeah.
There are so many interesting use cases for those door window sensors. I've got too many to think of.
Yeah.
No, those are good ideas.
That's actually, it's funny because, Phil and I talk almost every day, and I've never actually thought of this. Do you do this, Phil? I didn't think you did, but that's actually really cool.
No, this was just something I thought of because I purchased a whole bunch extra of these door window sensors because, they're cheap, and I thought, I'll definitely have a use case for them. And now they're sitting on my desk, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do with you? And then I was like, because I think it was there's those magic cards where people have those RFID tags, and they can put them up to an NFC reader and then play music. And then I thought, well, you've got these door window sensors. And remember those, we have a hidden door behind a bookcase, and you open up a certain book and then it opens up the whole door. So maybe you could do, drawers or anything, and then have, certain combinations with you. If you can open, obviously you'd need to be able to track the state and the ordering that everything happened, but yeah, it would be pretty funky. Like, imagine a party, everyone's over at your house, and you're just like, hey guys, watch this. When I do it this way, this happens. I mean, maybe that's a way to sell home automation to other people.
Yeah, that's true. Make it entertaining.
Exactly.
That's cool. So Sean, how many people are in your smart home that utilize this entire system?
Just my wife and I and a cat.
Okay. That's actually interesting. How do you deal with the cat?
I've learned to live with it. It's just actually the Xiaomi sensors are really good about not triggering with the cat, unless the cat is really up in its sensor, really right up against it. But I mean, the Hue picks up everything, which is so I have two of the Hue Motion and then two of the Xiaomi motion sensors, and I've had to choose which rooms would be best for each one, just depending on the cat.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Hue goes into the smaller areas, like the bathroom or the bedroom, whereas the Xiaomi goes into just high traffic areas because it just won't trigger as often.
Does the Hue motion sensor allow you to adjust the sensitivity of how much motion it needs to trigger?
Yeah, I know it did in the app itself, the Hue app.
Yep.
I don't know. I never really bothered. Once I got it into Home Assistant, I never really bothered tweaking anything else in the app, so that's not a bad idea. I'm assuming it'll work. But yeah, I had to use a custom component just to get the motion sensors to work from the Hue stuff. And but no, I never even thought about going back into the app. That's not a bad idea.
Because I know I have a whole bunch of Z-Wave multi-sensors, and inside them there's a physical dial that you can adjust the sensitivity on for things, I'm guessing, for pets, so that you don't want a dog or something running around your house and triggering all your motion sensors at once.
Right. No, I'll have to double check that, because that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be quite a bit of testing though, right? Like you don't want to make it so, I don't want to call it insensitive, but you don't want to turn down the sensitivity so much to the point where, if you're walking around or something and you want to make sure that it actually captures you guys, right? Like,
right. Yeah. I don't want to make it to the point where it's almost useless.
Yeah. So a little bit of tweaking, I guess.
You could go full ghetto, and I've seen this posted, maybe it was on Reddit or in the Home Assistant forums, where you can actually put a bit of duct tape on the bottom of the sensor so that it doesn't pick up any motion from the floor, only like human height, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty ghetto. and I apologize to people that do that. There's for me at least, there's no way my partner would let me do that and keep that invisible sight of anything. She'll be like, "That's ugly. Take that down right now."
I mean, it's a clever idea for a fix. But I mean, I guess it really just also depends where your motion sensors are located. For instance, not all of mine are located like up in the corner of the ceiling or anything like that. Some of them are just located around to where, the best possible view of where we're most likely going to be in the room. So it's just, I like the idea, but it would still, because, the cat likes to hop up on high things.
Yeah, right.
Still no way to fix that yet.
Yeah, that's true. Because like jump up on a couch or something too.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah.
So do you have a favorite automation, and what would it be?
My favorite automation, as of right now, probably is when we both go to sleep. I have Tasker on my phone, and I've been using Tasker for years. I think that's what really got me into automation, was just messing around with different things. And I set it up to where it does a HTTP post or something like that, to where whenever we plug in the chargers for our phones after a certain time, all the lights in the house goes off, the volume on all the Google Homes go down, that kind of thing. And that's probably the one that I liked the most, because it was a huge pain to set up and I felt really accomplished after doing it. But that's probably my favorite. The other one that comes in a close second is probably whenever we watch something on Plex, the lights dim and pause, the lights kind of, brighten up to 50%, that kind of thing, like a movie theater experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's so simple, but it's just like, it is the most fun.
Are you using the native Plex component in Home Assistant for that?
Yeah. Been using that. I didn't know if there was a different alternative, but it's been mostly solid. There's every once in a while the timing on it gets off. Like, for instance, whenever we pause or play the movie, it'll take like 30 seconds to a minute just for the lights to turn off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have the same setup, and I believe you can either use the webhooks in Plex now, so that when the server detects that you started playing, it will push that information to Home Assistant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because what the native Plex integration does in Home Assistant, it actually polls, I think every 30 seconds or whatever, to see, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? What are you doing now? So there's always going to be that little bit of delay. But if you do want it more closer to instant, so as soon as you hit the play button, the lights go down, you can look into using webhooks from the Plex media server. Otherwise, you might also be able to use Tortili, which is another system you can run to monitor the status of your Plex server and have that tell Home Assistant to dim the lights.
Oh, okay. I seem to remember I haven't looked at my configuration for a long time, ever since I got it working, which was years ago now. It's just, I think there was also something about a scan interval where you could change it to like 1 second, and it's supposed to pull every second, but I don't know how well that works either.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that with that though.
Yeah, especially if you're, I guess now you've moved off your Raspberry Pi, but if you were to, that would be, you're going to eat up a lot of CPU cycles doing that. Not a lot of CPU cycles. It's just, it has to do it, right? And
right.
You're putting load on your Plex server, you're putting load on your Home Assistant, and the nice thing is I like the webhooks method. Like, webhooks are, I don't know, in my opinion, it's definitely like very modern, right? I think it's a good way of saying it in terms of
Yeah.
Why don't you have Plex tell you when it's playing rather than the other way, rather than you constantly asking, right?
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Because, I mean, a restart takes care of it, but I don't want to have to restart every other day just to get Plex to work correctly.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it, right? I was browsing around your Git repo the other day, and I noticed your vacuum cleaner is called Rosie. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that's true.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
is that a homage to the Jetsons?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to think of that. It's just I remember the Jetsons, and it's like, well, they had Rosie. I mean, we'll call her Rosie. I don't know why we automatically defaulted it to being a her either, but who knows?
So Rosie has the cleaning map in your UI.
Yeah.
And this is the first time I've seen the cleaning map. Is that something that you generated, or is it something that the vacuum cleaner generates and they've just put into Home Assistant somehow?
Yeah, no, Nito, it generates it in the app at Nito's end itself, and whoever made the Nito component just was able to make it drop in there. And I just thought it'd be fun to throw and see whenever it's done, because the Nito app, I'm not a fan of it. It's kind of, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was the UI on it's great. So I just wanted quick access, and like when it's done, I just want to open it up, see what it did, and close it immediately without having to tap a few buttons because I'm lazy.
Yep.
And so the Home Assistant thing, the integration was just perfect. Drop it right in there, one button, that's all you need to worry about, and then you can see the results at a glance.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. Out of everything that we've purchased so far, that's probably the most one that we both like the most.
Yeah. How do you find it as a vacuum cleaner? Does it do a good job?
Oh, yeah. It's, see, we had a kind of a cheaper, like $30 vacuum cleaner that we got from like Target or something like that. And it wasn't very adjustable. You couldn't really do much with it. And I wanted to try this out, and unsurprisingly, this was probably the easiest thing to convince my wife for us to get. We tried it out, and it turns out it does just a better job in general. The only thing, it struggles with corners and the sidewalls because we didn't opt for an extra $100 for a side brush. But it gets closer to the ground. And with the cat, it goes into places that we couldn't get into, but the cat could get to, and so it was just piles and piles of hair that just needed to be picked up. And it does a great job. I don't regret it one bit.
And it doesn't choke with all the cat hair?
No, it's been fine. I mean, I remember the first time we got it, we had to run it twice just because of all the cat hair. It's just like, like for instance, like you can't really vacuum underneath your bed very well, but cats love being underneath the bed. And so we were here for maybe about a year before we got the vacuum. So there was just cat hair. I'm sure a small little layer of it underneath our bed, and the vacuum cleaner, it's no problem. I recommend it.
That'll be a future purchase when I can justify it.
Yeah. I will say getting a robot vacuum is definitely handy. And like you said, it's when you get on places that you normally can't reach or can't fit your vacuum cleaner under the couch or under your bed and stuff without physically moving it, right?
Oh yeah.
And
that's great.
I remember the same thing with mine when my Roomba first got under my bed. It was just like, just stuff, right? Like just dust and all that stuff that collects as well. It's
actually like really gross because I mean, how often do people vacuum? Like once a week, twice a week, something like that. I mean, I could run. I did an experiment where I ran it every day for a week, and I don't know if it was just the cat, but I was surprised every day at how much it still picked up. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, it's almost like I don't even want to think about it. It's pretty gross.
Yeah, exactly.
So also on your GitHub repo, you have your home automation philosophy. And one of the quotes on there is, you shouldn't have to work the room should work for you.
That's a quote from my wife. She was making a joke. It's like, I was telling her how I want our house to be. She's like, yeah, you want the room to work you and not the other way around. It's like, that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get there. I'm struggling with the room presence, and I know there's a lot of good and pricey solutions out there, but I've been trying to figure out good ways just to like have the rooms always know when we're inside of them. And the only thing I've really have so far is like a timer on automations for lights. Like if the motion sensor hasn't been triggered for 10 minutes, go ahead and turn off the lights, that kind of thing. And I've been trying to think of more creative ways to like, hey, we're definitely in the rooms still, even though the motion trigger hasn't triggered at all. So that's where I'm really struggling with. And that's how I'm trying to get, essentially the room to read you, so to speak. And
yeah. So I have a couple of solutions. So for the living room, if the TV's on, then someone is in the room. Same with the bedroom. If the bedroom TV is on, then it will know that the room is occupied, even if the motion sensor turns off.
Right.
The struggle is if you're sitting still and the motion sensor turns off, yeah, it's hard to know if someone's in the room.
Yeah, it's like watching TV or something, that's no big deal. The lights should be off anyways. But like if we're eating dinner or something along those lines, I mean, that's a recipe for a lot of frustration right in the making. It's just I've been trying to think of ways, because what's nice is when you don't want to spend a lot of money, you get a lot more creative, and because you can't just throw money at the problem and have it go away. And so I've been really trying to think of ways outside the box. And like for instance, in my office, we have a motion sensor in here, but the way that I've made it so where like it always knows that we're in here. It knows I have a Steam account, and so whenever I'm on my computer, it triggers Steam saying that I'm here. So that tells Home Assistant that, hey, I'm on my computer.
Yep.
And the other way is for my wife, when she's on her laptop, it's almost always plugged in. So I just have to detect the wattage coming out of the wall. And so that also tells Home Assistant that we're in here we're working on something. And I just wish there was more things for like the bedroom or the living room. Just trying to think of more things.
Yeah, I guess that's the problem. And that's where this is where like a lot of companies come out and say, yeah, we'll make you a nice smart home or whatever. But it's not until you get down to these finer details that every house is unique. Like there's not a solution that would apply for you or for my house that would work in this situation.
Yeah, well, it's behaviors that are different too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I might like something and you might absolutely hate it, right?
Yeah, I was thinking of, what are they called? Bayesian sensors, like making one up, but I don't think I have enough, I guess, data points to look at to actually make it worthwhile per room. Like have like a Bayesian sensor, like, hey, is living room active, and then do one for the office and for the bedroom. And if I don't think I have enough to make that work. But that's the only thing I can really think of at this time. But I think I need more sensors.
Yeah, you need a lot of data to sort of give it enough information to make a decision.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure I'll think of something. It might be expensive, though.
The other option is if you carry your phone with you, there's the Room Assistant, which allows you to just set a whole bunch of Raspberry Pis in a room, and it tracks your Bluetooth, basically finds out which one you're closest to, and then reports you as in being inside that room.
Yeah, I've seen it, and that looks really, really cool.
But it does require you to carry your phone with you everywhere.
Right, that's the big problem.
Yeah.
It's like I can't no way I can guarantee that we do that.
Yeah, the nice thing is if you are used to doing that, it's kind of passive. It's a passive way of your house knowing where you are, right? Yeah. Again, it's a habit thing, right? How do you operate?
Yeah, I seem to remember an article about a new Wi-Fi system or something like that, where the router can determine where you are in the house by the Wi-Fi signal. It'll bounce off you and come back.
Yes.
I don't know if that's even a thing yet. But I also know that would be also stupidly expensive whenever it comes out. But that seems like when that eventually does, like that's going to be the perfect solution right there. If it works as well as they say it does.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing I can really think of without spending, having multiple tiny sensors everywhere, carrying your phone, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember what it was called, but we did talk about it in one of the episodes, and it was it's pretty neat because it basically, like you said, it uses RF to kind of determine where you are, and basically builds a giant mesh around the house, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool.
That would be really cool.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. That would solve the problem right there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a inexpensive solution or not. I think I would think it's not, but I don't know.
That's the Xandom system, which I don't think is for sale yet. Another phone tracking option could be to use something called Find, which is an app you can install on your phone, which can then detect which room your phone is in based on your Wi-Fi.
Interesting.
Really?
I'm not sure if it needs like any special like hardware either.
Oh, interesting.
So you can just slap it on your own router and then it'll work. Because I'm on there right now, and you guys are going to know more about the compatibility of this than I am.
It allows you to use your Android smartphone or Wi-Fi enabled computer, laptop or Raspberry Pi to determine your position within your home or office. You can easily use this system in place of motion sensors, as its resolution will allow your phone to distinguish whether you are in the living room, the kitchen, or the bedroom. And the position information can then be used in a variety of ways, including home automation, wayfinding, or tracking.
Yeah, interesting. This looks like a framework more than anything else, right?
So how does it work? So it uses already available Wi-Fi information to classify.
So normally, again, in other environments like retail stores and things like that, you would triangulate, right? So you need multiple points of data, whether it's Wi-Fi or whatever. Even with wireless, you typically standard is, again, triangulate, right? You need at least three wireless access points to be able to see you and stuff. And I mean, if you have that at home, great, but a lot of people don't. So I don't know how accurate this would be.
So the difference between so what you're describing is the owner of the Wi-Fi determining the users where they are in the store.
Yeah.
So you would need the 3 signals. But this app that you would install on your phone is the other way around. It's you finding out based on the access point whereabouts you are. So it knows that in a certain room it will have this sort of strength, and it can basically build a fingerprint. So it knows, all right, this strength, and it's this way in this direction. I sort of get this number sort of thing. And then it reports it to itself, and then you have that data, so then you can report it back to Home Assistant to say, this is where I am in the house.
Right.
Whereas in your description with the store that wants to know where its customers are, they don't have access to an app on that phone to get the unique information of where it is exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. So, right. That makes sense then. If it's on your phone pushing data the other way, because yeah. I think it still wouldn't be 100% like this room versus that room. It depends on how your house would be set up.
Yeah, that's very true.
So, but that's neat though. It's good to know.
Yeah, someone way smarter than me is going to have to figure this out.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Oh. Problem will be solved in probably another couple of years.
Yeah,
there's lots of people working on it. I know there's Zandam and a whole bunch of other people. Your other option is you just put a whole bunch of cameras in your house, and then you do face detection. If the camera can recognize your face in the image, then it knows you're in that room.
I don't think I could put a camera in every single room.
Yeah. For me, it's almost intrusive, right?
Yeah, it feels weird. I mean, I know it would be like on my own system, and I would go for the local route because I've learned local is best. And it just feels like I'm still being watched, even though I'm watching myself. It's still kind of weird feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also know my problem is because I don't have this technical background. I just see something that's like, well, why doesn't it work like this? I have that question always, like, well, why can't it just do this or something, without really thinking of the technical ramifications of getting something as simple as, detecting a person is. And I think also a lot of people who come into home automation, because what we want to do is seemingly, it's as simple as turning on a light, which for everyone, that's easy. Everyone understands the concept of turning on a switch, but they don't realize the complexity and how much work is required just to actually do it in a smart way. And I run into that problem so much. It's like, well, why can't it just work be easy? Like that was easy. And because it's just simply, we're just ignorant and simply just don't understand just how much work it really, really is.
I think that's mostly what we had for you. Did you have anything kind of to end with or anything, or? Well,
I'll say if I can learn how to do Home Assistant, you can too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because I do not have a technical background at all, and it's just it was quite the difficult learning experience starting off, because my background's in graphic design. I don't have any kind of real technical background, and it's just like it was daunting at first, but there are a lot of great resources, and also now the Home Assistant Awesome wiki that someone made. It's like, I wish that was around 2 years ago, because that is a wonderful resource. And it's just like, if you're on the fence about starting out with it, I recommend getting into it now, because it's just only going to get easier from here.
Yeah.
So you have your background in graphic design. Did you find YAML and all that a steep learning curve to start coding your automations in?
Looking at it as a first timer, it was daunting. But the more you got into it, you realize there's a logic to it, and like a hierarchy to everything. It's like it took me a couple hours, but then once I understood just how it's set up, it also just clicked.
Yeah.
And it's not so bad. I mean, I prefer to work. I know a lot of people would go to Node-RED and stuff because it's a very visual way of going by your automations. But at this point, it's just I'm comfortable with YAML enough to where it's just like I don't need the Node-RED. But I mean, for first timers and new beginners, I would probably recommend the visual route. Even though I've never used Node-RED, so I don't know how confusing it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just now it's not too bad, and I see the pattern. The things that I struggle with now is not realizing that there's a particular function that can do something, and I had to, I read the forums or the some Reddit posts where it's just like, oh, I had no idea that was even possible. Like, for instance, I know one of my automations has the delay function in it, which I didn't know existed for over a year until someone mentioned it. And it's awesome. I love using the delay function. But it's just, unless you know it's not there to begin with, it's just like I could see someone really struggling with trying to find a particular way to do something without their search capabilities on the website may not be great, or they're not really good at using Google. But aside from that, it's just YAML's not bad.
Yeah, and it's getting a lot easier with Has.io as well, right? It's at least it's a platform to start with, right? And then
I've been wanting to try Has.io. It's just this requires a Raspberry Pi to do, right?
So there's a couple of options. So the default way to run Has.io is with it's like an image good to go on a Raspberry Pi. But in your case, because you have your Linux server running, as long as you've got Docker installed on your machine, you can actually there's a script on the Has.io instructions that will go ahead and install Supervisor and then run Has.io, and which will then spin up its own supervisor container and then go ahead and run Has.io on a Linux machine.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with Docker. I hear people talk about it all the time. And it's just, honestly, getting the whole Linux VM to run was infinitely more confusing than Home Assistant for me.
Well, I mean, if you only have graphic designs, like if you're not a programmer, you're only a graphic designer, then that makes, I can see that.
It was tough. And as soon as I got everything, I made a snapshot. And it's like, I'm never doing this again.
Yeah. Fair enough. It's it can be a bit daunting sometimes, right?
Yeah, especially for someone like me. Wouldn't recommend it. Stick with the Raspberry Pi if you can.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that's all our questions. We got a bit sidetracked. Well, Sean, thank you so much for having a chat with us today, and it's good to see that not just coders can use Home Assistant. So, thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with us.
Oh no, thank you all too. I've had a great time. Keep doing what you're doing.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.